Are you interested in purchasing a replica diecast similar to the one that Todd Kidd used to win this year's Ajax 200, the one that defending champion Cameron Atwood used to win the first night race at Disney, the one that Todd Kidd used to win his 10th milestone Ajax Cup victory at Belltown, or the one that Laquan Scranton used to win under the lights in the Ajax All-Star race? Well, if you are, you're in luck. Head on over to Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales and use coupon code ASCA on any orders $20 or more to acquire free shipping at checkout.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Charles Fallon, back in here with another edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast, as I just stated. But man, we have a ton to talk about after the penultimate weekend of the season is now wrapped up. We know at least one champion on the Ajax Cup side of things, so we got to talk about the Diego Orkedi and Orkedi Bros Racing dynasty. What an incredible run that Diego and that entire organization have been on throughout the modern era. That's now 5 titles in a decade for that team. Just absolutely insane. Also got to talk about the future of Orkedi Bros Racing. I should say, Carson Schmidt and his first career win, his heroics in the late laps at West Virginia, holding off a former Cup champion. We got to talk about 3 more Cup champions and their potential of going winless in 2024 as we close in on the Ajax season finale this Saturday night. We got to talk about the Craftsman Series championship battle in the wild Body Armor 125 on Friday night. What a race that was. Also got to talk about Diego Bowden Motorsports, arguably the most hated team in the sport, hosting their press conference and revealing their drivers for the 2025 Ajax Cup campaign. And also, we got to preview the final weekend of the season, the Geico 100 and the Ajax season finale at Belltown Speed Park. Hard to believe we made it this far, but wouldn't be possible without the ASCA and the ASCA Weekly Podcast premier partners, Rowdy Energy. You already know, click the second to top link in bio. Head on over there and go cop yourself one. And Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales. Use coupon code ASCA for free shipping on any orders $20 or more. If you want to look into copping, I don't know, an Ian Adonde first win diecast or a replica diecast of Carson Smith's first Ajax Cup Series victory in the West Banco 250. Hey, why don't you go over and use that coupon code ASCA, free shipping on any orders $20 or more inside the U.S. only. So once again, shout out Rowdy Energy, shout out Circle B Diecast, Plan B Sales, and yeah, let's get into it. So obviously, the big topic of discussion this weekend has to be Diego Orkedi. Diego Orkedi. Diego Orkedi. What a driver. What a man. What a team. What an organization. That is now 4 championships in 10 seasons for Diego. Won at age 24 back in 2015. Came back at age 27. Won his second in 2018. Came back in age 29. Won his third in 2020. And now, this time out, he captures his 4th at age 33 in 2024. And he goes up there with Ronnie Woods as the only 4-time champions in Ajax Cup history. And it's just insane. It is really insane that someone has been able to tie Ronnie Woods' mark at the top of the sport. That mark was one that I thought we would never see topped. But Diego has proven to be the best of his generation, the best of the modern era. And what truly amazes me is his finesse in getting the job done this time around. Like, his first 3 championships, he was embroiled in a bunch of controversy. The first one was obviously controversial because of the way he took the points lead and then the driver's strike right after season was never resumed. So Diego was handed the championship. And a lot of people would look back and call that a Mickey Mouse title. I get that. But the past three have not been. And even though, he's arguably bullied his way to the front, 2018, he only had one DNF, like 13 top 10 finishes, 3 victories, a bunch of laps led. 2020, the incredible comeback he had from 37 points back in 12th after the 6th race of the season. And then he goes on that incredible tear in the second half of the year, winning 3 out of 5 races down the stretch, leading a whole bunch of laps and going on to obviously clinch that championship. That was his third, and over Todd Kidd and Greg Healy and all those guys, Bern Reddard and some others. But this one, I think, might be his most impressive. And it's just with the way the competition level is these days and how easy it is to miss the setup here and to be off. And if you're off, you're going to have a hard time because the competition level is so tight. I would say amongst the top 18 drivers this season, like any one of those drivers can win on any given week. Any one of those drivers can run top 5 on any given week. And despite that, Diego has put up 10 top 5 finishes this year, 13 top 10 finishes. His only finishes outside the top 10 have been at Ajax Super Speedway, and that track is obviously a crapshoot. Only one finish outside the top 15. Again, not even his fault. And even his one finish, his first DNF of the season and the season opener, again, not his fault, blew up. So it's like the consistency for Diego has just been off the charts this season, and that's how he won the title. Consistency. He's only led 155 laps this season. He's only won 2 races, only, I say. But when you look at the flashy seasons that Todd Kidd had in the first half of 2024 and the second half of 2024 has belonged to Laquan Scranton, those two have really taken all the headlines this season. Even Shane Park has been, steadily in the second spot in points throughout most of the year, having his breakout campaign at Ronnie Woods Motorsports. Those guys have been taking all the headlines, but deep down and quietly, Diego has just been plugging away, staying out of trouble, plugging away, top 10 finish, top 10 finish, top 5, top 5, top 5, top 10, top 10, top 10. And just that consistency is going to win you championships every single time out. And that's why he was able to clinch the title race early at West Virginia. Third place finish in this one, led 35 laps. And, people can try to discredit it and point to all the stuff that Lewis has done, Louis Orkedi, that is Diego's father, to aid and abet Diego's career. But the dude's 33 years old now. He's not still living with his parents at home. He's obviously made a name for himself. He is the ASCA right now, the most recognizable name in the sport. If you watched an Ajax Cup race, you probably know who Diego Orkedi is. And really the big thing for me about Diego and how he did it this year is kind of the maturation process that he has taken. Ever since he got engaged, it seems like he's been going to anger management, therapy, all this other stuff. And the anger levels have gone from 15 on a scale of 10 all the way down to like 3 or 4, sometimes 2 or 1. Diego really hasn't fired anyone in a really long time, which is like for Diego, that's a major accomplishment, because he used to fire people every week. So like he hasn't fired anyone in a really long time. He hasn't had one of his blowups, I don't think, at all this season, even though he's been at a couple of hairy incidents. But it's just really kind of astounding to kind of see finally the maturation process of Diego into kind of embracing his mantle as, hey, dude, you are the face of the ASCA. You cannot keep acting like a petulant 12-year-old child when you're entering your mid-30s. You're a father of 4. You're engaged, about to be married. He is married now. Um, like he had to grow up basically. And I think that him securing his 4th title and tying himself with Ronnie Woods after finally taking that step up in maturation, I think that just kind of caps off the redemption arc of Diego Orkedi. Like people were obviously disappointed to see, Diego winning another title. Are you kidding me? We've seen this time and time and time again, and I get that. We've seen Orkedi Rose Racing and Ford win championships time and time and time again. That's now 6 and 10 years for the team. And for Diego, he has 4 championships in the past decade. No other team organization combined has more than 2, and those both came from Randall Woods and Michael White Racing. So it's insane what he and Orkedi Rose Racing have done. So congratulations to that entire team and to that entire organization, as I said, and for Ford as a whole. I mean, what a weekend it was for Ford. Not only do you have Diego locking up your 6th championship in 10 years for the Blue Oval squad. Then, we go back to Friday, 1-2 finish for the Ford Development Program. Ian Adonde scores his first career win. Graham Darty takes back the points lead, has the inside track to the championship, maybe becoming the first Ford since Henry Brady to, very well win a Craftsman Series championship. That could very well happen. We also had Carson Schmidt and the incredible job that he did fending off Greg Healy to score his first Ajax Cup Series victory. It's like this weekend literally could not have gone any better for Ford. So just incredible for them. And I'm sure, the executives right now got to be celebrating because you have the past of Ford and Diego, and the present of Ford, still Diego. Diego and Nick were really the past of Ford, and now the present is Diego and Cameron Atwood kind of carrying the mantle. And now eventually they're going to pass the torch to the future of Ford, which is guys like Graham Darty and Ian Adonde and some of these other prospects that the Ford Development Program continues to find and kind of bring and develop up through the ranks. And really, it's just incredible what they built there. They are the manufacturer to beat. Chevrolet has they've had their down moments, but they have been trying to chase Ford. Basically, that's what they've been trying to do with all these young drivers, and they still can't beat them. They won the last 4 Craftsman Series championships, and this year they had 2nd through 4th in the championship, all right there. But just they don't have that veteran presence that's able to knock off a juggernaut, a GOAT, you could argue, as Diego Orkedi. And I very well think he's going to be age 34 next season. I'd say Diego probably has another 3 to 4, 3 to 5, I should say, good years left in him. Like, he still could very well get that Drive for 5 completed and go get that 5th championship. And I think that's his goal right now, is to go chase number 5 for 2025. So, just for that entire team, like, I don't think Diego's dominance is over yet. I very well think he get to 32 and surpass Ronnie Woods' record there. Like, he is far from done. And I think that's what this championship proved, is that the 22, even with some of your older familiar faces getting up there in age, starting to show their age a little bit, like a Norm Lester, Randall Woods, and Nick Orkedi. Diego has not aged a bit. He's still got it, and he is still going to be taking these young kids and this next generation, even the new breed of veterans like Healy, Keaton, Atwood. He's still going to be giving these guys fits for the next few years to come. So incredible for them. And then talking about the future of Orkedi Rose Racing, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Carson Schmidt, man, what a past few weeks it's been for him. he's had such an up and down sophomore campaign. But I think that if you would have told anyone that he would win a cup race before Ross Jackson, they would have called you certifiably insane. They really would have. Um, just like especially after his rookie season, I think he finished 19th in points last year, only one top five finish, two top tens. Like he was pathetic in that 12 car, but he has shown flashes this season of potential. West Virginia earlier in the season, where one pole led the opening 13 laps. Belltown drives from 18th to third. Um, then the Northern 200 leads a race high 116 laps and finishes third after obviously what happened with Bern Renard. And then, this race, obviously, he had the car to beat. I think it was pretty clear. He drove from like 13th to ninth on the opening start of the race. And then he would just continue to carve his way through the field, even when the sun kind of dipped under the clouds for a bit and then came back out. It didn't matter. 12 car was still the car to beat till the very end of the race. That's when, because there was no practice or qualifying this week. So the top really, it took the top a really long time to come in. And Healy was the main guy to take advantage of it. Really starting to work the top towards the end. And by the end of the race, that was a dominant groove. And Smith was so content to run the bottom and kind of just run it out there. But Healy was not going to let that happen. No, he was ripping that fence and he continued to close the gap and almost got there. But then when it mattered most, Schmidt went up to the top, ran it flawlessly through turns 1 and 2. And that just made it where Healy got that dreaded arrow push, got tight, got it in the wall, and there's literally no margin for error up there. Like if you get the arrow push, like there's nothing you can do. So, Carson Smith, I think he has proven he's been really inconsistent this season, but I think he's proven that he is the real deal. He is the future of Orkedi Bros Racing, and they made the right decision bringing him back for a year. We talked about it previously a few different times on here. Like he hasn't lit the world on fire like Laquan Scranton, but Laquan Scranton is a special case, just a 21-year-old that's on a completely different level from anything we've ever seen in the sport. Like not even Randall Woods and Diego Orkedi were on his level at that age. So, it's comparing him to Scranton is a moot discussion. He is very, I would say pretty ahead of his time, honestly. Like he's the best rookie out of the 2023 rookie class so far, and I don't think that's close. Honestly, I know Jackson's had his up and downs this season. He's had awful luck, but Schmidt has a win in just his 31st start, and the future, I think, for him is bright and carrying that Orkedi Bros Racing dynasty throughout the 2030s and beyond. I would say they, can agree to a long-term deal past the season. Like he's only on a 1-year contract, but I think that after a win like this, the first win for a driver not named Diego or Nick for Orkedi Bros Racing in 129 races, I think that conversation for a new contract need to start like now and kind of securing that future once Diego and Nick do inevitably hang it up. So moving on from that to talking about past champions. We talked about Greg Healy a little bit earlier. We talked about Nick Orkedi a little bit earlier. And he's had his struggles. He certainly had his struggles on Saturday. He said that was the worst car he's ever driven, which is ironic. His teammates finished 1-3, lead all those laps, and Nick Orkedi was just nowhere to be found. He was just, that was an awful race for him. I think one of the worst of his career. Honestly, it's kept backing up. From the drop of the green flag, he lost like 30 spots and only went further downhill from there until he ended up wrecking after Doug Bowden got him arrow loose. And so awful race for Nick Orkedi. And he's staring down the barrel of going winless for the second straight season, as is Greg Healy. potentially going winless for the first time since 2019, as is Randall Woods potentially going winless for the first time um, since 2022. So, question is, do these three Cup champions all go winless in 2024? I think the answer could very well be yes. I think Healy, obviously, we had the Belltown. We all know Healy's track record at Belltown. He by far has the best shot of winning. And while Van Woods and Nick Orkidi both have won a Belltown in the past, I think Orkidi has a pretty relatively good shot because he normally runs pretty solid. He has won the season finale before back in 2018. Ironically, his brother also won the championship that year. And but yeah, he won the finale back in 2018, and he runs historically really well in this race, at least top five. Sometimes second. I know he had a really good fight with Todd Kidd back in 2019, where Kidd scored his first career win in that race. So like Urquidy has a pretty good track record of running well in this race. Woods does not. Like he's rather hit or miss. He led 50 laps at Belltown earlier this season, but Michael White Racing clearly does not have the pace that they had around that time. Like they are slow right now. They've gotten progressively worse throughout the season instead of better. And I really think Randall Woods is probably the biggest one in danger of going winless in 2024. Obviously, two of these guys are going to go winless. Only one of them can win this race, and potentially all three of them could go winless, honestly. But I think Woods really does not have a shot, and it's not even, like it's not him. That's why they're going to go winless. Like he has 10 top 10 finishes this season, but only 3 top fives. That just shows um, how slow the cars for Michael I Racing are. Like he is dragging them up the order. And I think for that team, that's why they needed to sign Bryn Renner last week to add that spark to get them back on track because they completely missed it this year. And I think obviously the Toyota investors and the executives, they're not going to take too kindly to a winless season with how much they've dumped into this team over the years. So they got some work to do in the off season. Do Michael White Racing a lot of work to do, and yeah, so they got to get that figured out. But honestly, I think that Healy, of course, has the best shot of any of these guys to win a race. Will any of them win one? Could very well see someone like a Cameron Atwood or a Norm Lester, or who knows, maybe a Todd Kidd come back and win here. But I think that Healy is probably the safest bet out of all these guys, which would mean that Nick Orkidi and Randall Woods would be getting another year older, going winless again, and you gotta wonder like how much more do they have left in the tank? That's what I'm wondering at least. Like I don't know. It's not looking too good for them, honestly. Like how much further will they be able to go? We'll see. We will have to see. But let's move on from that to the Craftsman Series penultimate round of the campaign. And that would be, we talked about a little bit earlier, but the story of that race, the Ford Development Program, Ian Adonde, and finally breaking through for his first career win. Many people forget that he led the most laps at Advocare San Diego last year, but lost the lead in the pits, ended up restarting on the outside and finished like fourth or something, I think. While obviously his teammate Graham Doherty went on to hold off the future champion Colin Ward and win the race. And this time around, ironically enough, Adane did not have the dominant car. This time it was Aiden Roma that had the car to beat, but he was catching Roma on the long runs. Adane was. He was catching Roma and looked like he's going to be able to do something. And then we had a caution for Evan Stevens just flat out dumping Toby Beckett and putting him up into the outside wall, taking him out of contention. So that was that. And then we head to the restart. Romo got busted for speeding, which put Adonde as the control car on the restart, Darty on the outside. And yeah, the rest is history. They were able to bring home a 1-2 finish in this race. I think the two biggest, brightest future stars for Ford bring home 1-2 result. Really good result for them. And obviously for Ian Adonde, this goes a long way into him locking up fifth in points. So I think it's kind of a big deal, considering the top four have just kind of been in a league of their own the entire season. And it's just been fifth on back fighting for the scraps. And the bigger deal, I think, for the organization is Graham Darty taking back the points lead, because obviously defending champion Colin Ward caught up in an opening lap accident where what was it, Cody Turner just got loose or something underneath Tony Del Valle. He just lost it and got into Del Valle, and Del Valle smacked the outside wall, and Turner spun around directly in the path of Colin Ward, who just had nowhere to go. And then Nick Painter piled in the back of him for good measure. Like, there's nothing that Ward could have done in that situation. It's just a really tough deal for him, honestly. Tough situation, tough deal. And you got to feel for the defending champion. You know, he did have a golden opportunity to pounce last week. I'll give it to him there, but his luck this season just hasn't been there. And the same could be said for Marcus Edwards. Obviously it's been documented, the stuff that he's gone through that 2-week stretch at West Virginia and Disney. But also, in this race, he just didn't have it. Just did not have the pace to keep up. He was as high as fourth on a restart, I believe, but that was about it. That was the last we heard of him, really. And from there he just continued to backslide further and further and further, and eventually ended up finishing seventh. And then was involved in an incident with Danny Bradford. Post-race fisticuffs were thrown between those two. Both were called to the hauler. And so just not the night that Marcus Edwards needed, but he is still only 7 points back, and he is the defending Geico 100 winner. So, hey, it is far from over. Graham Darty, though, did finish second at Beltone earlier this season. So it all comes down to the Geico 100, basically. And we're going to preview this race in a bit, but 7 points now separate Darty from Edwards, and 14 separate Darty from Ward. Ward's going to need a miracle if he wants a shot at this. As for Edwards, if he wins the race and Darty finishes fourth, I believe the championship might actually be his, but it would come down to top 5 finishes. Like, he's going to need some help, basically. He's going to need Darty to not be directly up at the front. And, of course, he has to go out and win and lead the most laps and dominate. That's what he has to do. So, all hands on deck for Dexter Andrews Motorsports. They got to get it right this weekend and really just pray and hope that Darty has an off race. And the problem for them is we got Cup drivers back in the field. And we got guys like Ryan Dixon and Norm Lester and Doug Bowden and Derek Lewis also in this race. And especially for Lester and Lewis, this is their final race for Michael White Racing and Dexter Andrews Motorsports, respectively. You best believe they're going to want to go out with a victory, in their final starts for their teams. So I look at that, and these Craftsman regulars going to have the work cut out for them to really, really, really want to run up at the front of this field. So it's going to be a very interesting finale this Friday night. If you're not watching this, I don't know what you're doing, because it's going to be a fun one. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it at that. It's going to be a very interesting race, and it's Belltown, so anything can happen. Anything. Literally anything. And now, moving on to probably the most heated team in the ASCA right now. That would be Diego Orkedi Motorsports. They held a press conference and revealed a couple of interesting tidbits for next season. We all know Doug Bowden is back in the Ford car. He's under contract with the team through 2027. So he is the patriarch of that team at this point, the team leader, unquestioned, no doubt. And no, it's not just because he is the team owner's son. Like, he legitimately has the most talent of the group. And there's a reason why he has 2 Cup wins and the rest of the organization has none. But nonetheless, I digress. For Diego Orkedi Motorsports, they bring Devin Smith back on a 1-year deal, which I think is fine. Smith has been basically irrelevant this entire season, other than he led 36 laps in the Ajax 200, which I still don't know how that one happened, and he hasn't done anything since, which is good that he's not, tearing up a bunch of equipment, but you also would kind of expect more. Like I would at least expect him to kind of be up there a little bit more, like at least up there trying to compete with Doug Bowden, like Nick Painter did for a couple races in 2023. But Smith just hasn't even been able to do that. The speed has just not been there for the 14 this season, and it hasn't been there for the 10 either. But they are hiring Jack Alaus, the free agent Canadian-born driver, formerly of True North Motorsport, that Canadian outfit that filed for bankruptcy. They're bringing him in on a 2-year contract, so it's a very interesting hire, the hire of Alaus, but I kind of like it actually, and here's why. We obviously know that on the oval tracks, the 10 car has absolutely no chance of competing. We just saw that with Ryan Braun. You could say, oh, he's washed, that's why. But I mean, seriously, I think, even when Cameron Atwood was in the car, it would still finish 3 laps down at like Computer Motor Speedway and West Virginia Motor Speedway. Atwood could drag the car up the order on the short tracks and, on tracks like Denver and the Stone Yard, but on those high speed aero sensitive tracks, there's really not much he could do. And at least for Alaus, when you look at him, you can say, okay, this is a guy that on the road courses, he can drag that car up the order, similar to what we said with Atwood on the short tracks. Alaus can do that on the road course. He proved that in the 41, a fourth car, part-time car for the team, and on the play tracks, career best second place finish of the Basketball 200. So I actually really like this hire for Deco Bound Motorsports. We've seen what Alaus can do dragging up. He's used to underfunded equipment basically in the number 7 for all those years with True North Motorsport. So he knows, the limits of his car. He generally brings it home in one piece, and he has the potential to drag the car up the order at the road courses and at the plate races. So I really like this hire of Alaus. I think it's a pretty solid hire. Super cheap contract, 2-year deal. It's whatever. And obviously it's going to be irrelevant for probably, I would say, 3/4 of the races. But at Ajax Super Speedway, the streets Computerville, and on the Michigan road course, that 10 car might have a realistic shot of at least running inside the top 10, top 15. So I think it's a pretty solid hire, and you're probably going to get more out of that core than you were out of Ryan Braun. That's nothing against Ryan Braun. It's just Alaus obviously has that road racing specialty. So, and he's got tons of experience as well. It's not like he's a 19-year-old kid. No, he's 26. He is by far the oldest rookie entering the cup level. He's got 4 years of Craftsman Series experience. So I really like this hire. I really do. And we'll see how it ends up working out. But in the meantime, I think it's a good deal. So shout out to Tico Bound Motorsports. I think they made a solid hire with Alaus to the 10. And we'll see how he does at the cup level. But now it's time to preview the final weekend of the ASCA in 2024, the Geico 100, the Ajax season finale. We're going to officially crown 2 champions this weekend. I cannot wait, man. It's hard to believe because, just yesterday, it seems like me and Nick were here filming the preseason edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast, and now we're going to be here next Tuesday. Well, I'm going to be here. Nick is obviously incredibly busy still, but I'm going to be here next Tuesday for the 2 of you that are listening this far. I'm going to be back here, and we're going to recap basically everything that just went out in, the entire season, kind of do a season recap sort of deal. And it's going to be incredibly fun. And it's just wild that this 4-month stretch has absolutely flown by. Much appreciated to all the viewers out here that support the ASCA with, offering the likes and the comments and Subscribing to the YouTube channel and the TikTok, and obviously following the race broadcast on Instagram. You are incredibly appreciated. You don't know how much you mean to the sanctioning body, and your support it does not go unnoticed, basically. But let's get to the season finale and previewing these races at Belltown. The Geico 100. Obviously, we talked about it. 14 points separate the top three, and Graham Darty has an opportunity to become the first Ford driver since Henry Brady back in 2019 to take home the Craftsman Series championship. So this is a big deal for him. And for Ford as a whole, they can completely sweep the championships if Darty takes it home. So, like, this is a big freaking deal for that team and for the organization and for Ford Development Program as a whole, for the Blue Ovals. Like, this is huge. And I think for Edwards, he really has to go out and win. Like I said, go out, win, lead the most laps. Same for Ward, except tenfold. Like, he needs to go out, win, lead the most laps, and then he needs help. He needs Darty to be taken out in an accident. He needs Edwards to find some trouble or be taken out in an accident as well. So, but it's Belltown. Anything can happen. We just saw that in the AutoZone 200 earlier this season, where Healy and Atwood were 1-2 on lap 75, and by lap 150, they're both in the garage area. So, like, anything can happen. It's going to be a wild one, I really do think, especially with the Cup drivers out here. But I think the Cup drivers being out here actually benefits someone like a Graham Darty, because now, assuming that the Cup drivers like Dixon and Lester and Bowd end up running towards the front the majority of the race, that blocks Edwards from scoring max points. And that, obviously would help Darty. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of goes down here. I'm very interested to see what happens. But I think my money has to be on Graham Darty. 7 points, unless you can win a race and lead the most laps, is going to be a lot to overcome. So, and like I just said, the competition does not bode well for Edwards. It certainly doesn't bode well for Ward. Give me Graham Darty to take home the Craftsman Series championship. As for the race winner, Ryan Dixon's in the race. I know he lost it last year in the closing laps, but I don't think that's going to happen again. Ryan Dixon will score redemption and win the 2024 Geico 100, probably winning pole, probably leading all 100 laps. Just, his usual shenanigans. You know the deal by now. But then moving on to the Ajax season finale. And, the championship has been long decided. We took care of that at West Virginia, but there's still lots. These guys are still racing for pride. Like, there's still a lot to race for. Championship battles, vice champion, 5th in points, 10th in points. Like, there's a lot up for grabs in this event. And I think the battle to watch really is going to be second in points between, I look at Scranton, Park, and Kidd. Who's going to take vice champion? Last year it was Todd Kidd stealing it from under everyone's noses. We all thought it'd be Woods or Orkedi or Renard even, but it ended up being Kidd that took it. So, I don't know who's going to take it this year. Park and Scranton are tied 33 back of Orkedi. So, going to be very interesting to see what happens there. I really don't know. It could be very interesting. And then, 5th in points, well, defending champion Cameron Atwood would at least be able to salvage such an up and down disappointing title defense campaign with at least a top 5 winners in points. I think it's Belltown, it's Atwood. I think he very well should be able to. He's finally been able to not DNF every other race. So I think that he'll be fine this time around. But again, it is Belltown. And then we talked about Will Healy, Nick Orkedi, and Rand Watts all go winless in 2024. I don't know. I think it's going to be between Healy and Atwood for the race win, as it has been basically the past 3 years in this race. And my money's on Atwood, actually. He's led 291 laps this season. He led the most laps the last time out at Belltown. He, you know, my money is on Atwood taking it home. He won the last even year finale, basically. I got Atwood. So give me Kieran Atwood to take it home. As for the guy going 100, give me Ryan Dixon to take it home. Seems like it's going to be another great weekend for Ford if they can sweep the races and sweep the championships. But we'll see. It is Belltown. This is why this is the finale, the final race of the season, because anything can happen. Anything that can and will probably happen at Belltown. Who knows? Maybe Carson Smith could go back to back. You never know. It could be wild. But that's it for this edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast. We got one more of these for 2024, and then we'll be back in the offseason to recap all the storylines that go on there. We're going to take a little bit of a break after next week, but I cannot wait, man. It's wild. It's been a fantastic season, and it's shocking that we're going to be able to wrap it up next week. But thank you once again to the two of you that have listened this far. This is Charles Fallon signing out once again. Thanks to the ASA Stream Partners, Rowdy Energy, Circle B Diecast, Plan B Sales, and we will see you next week.